Okay. Good evening, everybody. It is September 12th, Tuesday. Welcome to the school board meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We'll give Mr. I haven't heard anything from Mr. Meyer, but I did hear from Mr. Strong. Oh, he's taking the long way. Okay, so he'll be here in a second. But I did hear from Mr. Strong, and he asked that he be excused from tonight's board meeting. So I'll make a motion to excuse Mr. Strong. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Mr. Meyer is not here yet. Coming soon. He's walking in the door now. Just as we were coming in, I proposed one change to the agenda, and that is to move 9C, 1, 2, and 3, which are 3 policy revisions, first reading, non-substantive changes. So moving 9C, 1, 2, and 3 to 12E, 18, 19, and 20. And the only reason why I suggested that was that I don't think any time that I can recall being on the school board where we've taken even just wording changes that don't impact the meaning. I don't think we've ever taken policy revisions in the consent agenda portion of the meeting. So I just think that as a matter of good practice, we take that up as having the discussion, and that if there's any, and then moving it to the action items. So those will just be moved to just a different spot in the meeting. Are there any other changes to the agenda?
No changes.
Okay. So next up, we have the oath of office for our 2 new student reps, and Dr. Finch is turn it over to you.
Very good. Well, at our last meeting, we did talk about our student reps. We're able to restart that again this year. We're so grateful that we have 2 students. We have a senior and a junior. So we'll have senior Magnus Fulton come up first, and then we'll have junior Ava Ferguson, and we'll have them do the oath of office. So Magnus, come on up. And we'll do this over here with this mic. Is it, you pick it up? Good. All right, here we go. All right, so you repeat after me. Put your right hand. I, Magnus Fulton,
I, Magnus Fulton,
do hereby solemnly swear
that
I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Washington
and the Constitution of the State of Washington
and the West Valley High School Associated Student Body Constitution.
and the West Valley High School Associated Student Body Constitution.
I will endeavor to promote the interests
I will endeavor to promote the interests
of education and to represent the West Valley student body
of education and to represent the West Valley student body
as I faithfully discharge the duties
as I faithfully discharge the duties
of student representative to the school board
of student representative to the school board
of the West Valley School District number 208
of the West Valley School District number 208
in Yakima County in the state of Washington.
in Yakima County in the state of in Yakima County in the state of
You
Washington.
made it. Congratulations. There we go. All right. We'll go ahead and have Magnus sign right here. There you go. Sign, sir. And then Ava, come on up. And congratulations. And we look forward to your student ASB reports in the future. All right, here we go. There you go. Raise your right hand. I, Ava Ferguson,
I, Ava Ferguson,
do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Washington
and the Constitution of the State of Washington
and the West Valley High School Associated Student Body Constitution.
and the West Valley High School Associate Student Body Constitution.
I will endeavor to promote the interests of education
I will endeavor to promote the interests of education
and to represent the West Valley Student Body
and to represent the West Valley Student Body
as I faithfully discharge the duties
as I faithfully discharge the duties
of student representative to the school board
of student representative to the school board
of the West Valley School District number 208
of the West Valley School District number 208
in Yakima County in the state of Washington.
in Yakima County in the state of Washington.
Congratulations. There you go. And we have you sign right there.
Good job.
And again, as we discussed at the last board meeting, we'll have the students provide the ASB report at the beginning of the meeting in the future, we'll do that under communications, and that'll give them the opportunity to participate. But then also, if they have homework or something like that and they have to slide out, that'll give them a chance to do that without having to be conspicuous here at the front of the meeting. All right, thank you.
Excellent. Do they have anything that they'd like to say this evening? You don't, and the answer being no is perfectly acceptable. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. It won't be the last time, by the way, so. All right, great. Well, welcome. Thank you. All right, on to item 6, communications. Dr. Finch.
Yes, our last meeting, we had a community member share information about Sunrise Rotary and their support for students in West Valley. Our response is that the West Valley School District is grateful for the service of the members of the Sunrise Rotary and their support for students, including the annual speech contest, which provides college scholarships for graduating seniors. So we appreciate that support and appreciate their participation in our board meeting last meeting. Next on the communications is a report that we included in the board packet. Again, for our audience, the board packet is always available online. The information that's here provided to the board is also online, and you can just click and see the different documents. This document is a letter from OSPI, the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction. It's regarding an administrative review of our child nutrition department, and it was a multi-year review, and there was very fine. There was no findings. There was some technical assistance that was recommended and some corrective action that was taken immediately. And in general, it was a very good review of our child nutrition. Whenever we receive this information from the state, either the auditor's office or OSPI, we'd like to share that with the board and make that part of our record that we have as part of our minutes for the board meetings and available in the future for anyone to review. So that was included under communications.
Thank you, Dr. Finch. Item 7, we have a presentation, career and technical education.
Very good. So we have Jed Waters, who serves as our Director for Career and Technical Education. His title is Executive Director for Innovation in West Valley. CTE is Career and Technical Education. That covers grades 7 through 12, and there's categorical funding for CTE. We do have Jed's responsibilities are pre-K through 12 and beyond in West Valley, because we want to have an articulated scope and sequence for career pathways in our district and career exploration. But tonight we're going to look specifically at CTE grades 7 through 12. We have a board presentation, the annual report, and then a resolution later in the meeting that will be approved by the board for our annual approval of the program. So this time we'd like to have the board join the audience so we can see the overhead, and Jed Waters will do his presentation to the school board and community.
Good evening, school board and community members. So tonight we're just going to go over a few highlights from last year and then a few things. One thing I want to hit on was some of our different pathways, and then some of the things that our CT teachers have to go through, or some of the extra duties that they do. That's kind of nice to know some of those. And then we'll look at some of our initiatives for the next year. So looking at this first, related to teaching and learning. So I kind of broke up in two spots. The Innovation Center last year welcomed the 10 through 12 programs. The year before we were 7 through 9. So last year was the first year of some of the 10 through 12 programs, as long or also with the 7-9 robotics. You can see through there some updates there. We did actually last year start to take students on tours. So we're back to touring Central, YVC, and Perry last year. We hosted the college career fair in October. Monthly Zooms, that was actually of a school board presentation last year. We looked at some of the different things that we could do to really try to promote some opportunities for students and families, letting them know. We toured Bar Borden's here. We toured Borden Fruit. We brought 25 teachers to there with two different things. It was really neat because a lot of teachers hadn't seen some of the technology. You drive by, their facility on a tandem. You drive by other buildings. You really don't get a grasp of what's going on. So it's neat to tour there and see the integration of technology in with picking apples and sorting apples and everything, aren't picking, but packaging and everything that way. We did end up bringing some students there as well too from the Innovation Center. So that was a neat highlight where we get to partner with the local employer there. A number of student activities. JROTC was really busy last year. Bighorn Network, state tournaments, they were broadcasting there. DECA, FFA also ran their farm days for us. Financial algebra class took a number of field trips along with our sports medicine group. And then we had a number of teachers starting to tour take some professional development opportunities. So some equipment. I don't know, I'll hit some of this on the grant slide too, but we had a number of different things with equipment. We finished the Innovation Center, some remodeling. That was kind of a 1.5 year long process with some of the different delays due to COVID and other things backed up that way, but we got that done. So that was pretty nice. Some 10, 12 computer labs. Our robotics ag program was able to get a lot of different robots. We'll hit on that in a minute. That was through some grant program. Welding construction labs at the high school. So some of this we thought, looked like, hey, a big investment innovation center, but we've done a lot with the high school too, as far as the welding construction labs. We're finishing that up. Our new instructor, Stephen Matzek's done a great job of really utilizing the students to help do a lot of that, the lean manufacturing, trying to pull some different things in as they set up that facilities. The high school also had a laser engraver and some 3D printers. And then one of the big additions was our high school and innovation center also got some anatomage tables. And if you haven't seen those, you want to contact, we'll set you up with Jeannie Martin. It's a table that's about the size, it's almost like the length of a body for you to lay down on a table, and you can do 3D dissections. So you can slice away, you can click on, it's all touch screen. You can see circulatory system. You can just pick different things. They actually can do some dissection. So it's pretty cool. You can actually get to see a lot of things in there. So that was neat. As we get to the next slide, a lot of that ended up being, as you can see, grant funding. So the nice thing is we've been able to utilize a number of either federal grants or state grants. So first one up being there is we got a robot for the Innovation Center, the state-of-the-art robot right there, and some automation systems. And we got a plasma cutter, all as part of a SRCT pathway grant. So that grant we wrote to really work on that robotics and agri-science pathway for students. Career prep and launch, got some farm bots. That operates a lot like our CNC router. So it would take, it's kind of got this arm that goes back and forth, an X, Y axis, and also on a Z axis going up and down. And that can plant, it can dig holes, it could water, it can actually pick different things. That's all done by some sensors and different things. So it's really neat that way. Again, kind of the future of automation that way. We got some little Vex work cell robots, and some pictures of some of those were in that school board packets. Our construction program got a panel saw. So I'll just go through, but you can look. I won't highlight all of them, but a lot of different things that grants help fund at the school. So those are things that taxpayers didn't have to fund. A lot of those were actually in not too long and right in the grant. So we were able to get a number of things. And with the CPR mannequins, our goal as we start to move forward is really working on every student starting in 7th grade to have their CPR and first aid certification, and they continue that through their time that they graduate here. So our 7th grade programs have first aid CPR at the junior high, mid-level campus, and at the Innovation Center. 9th grade health here has first aid CPR certification along with some of our PE classes. Innovation Center does in 9th grade, and then we'll start looking at over the next year how we can integrate that for our 11th graders as well. So ideally, if anything happens throughout the building, we should have a number of students and staff that are well trained. We just did run in August, we ran a training for staff. We had over 80 staff members come and attend to be first aid CPR certified. We're going to try to run 2 of those a year. The nice thing is we use our own staff to facilitate those. There's no cost to us. So now said, if you go online, do a first aid CPR certification, it's typically usually around $40 to $50 if you want the full on one. You can find some cheaper versions, but it's now a full certification. Just as I took an online test, here we do everything hands-on. So if we're able to train our whole staff multiple times throughout the year, the certification is good for 2 years. It's going to save us a lot of money that way and just helps us all be safe. So some neat things there, some grant funding. Some of our current pathways that run agriculture. We have our high school program still. We start off with food and natural resources, move on to horticulture science, animal science, Innovation Center program there. Our business and marketing at the high school here, one of our big things is a school store that's open typically before school, at lunch, and after school. So students have a chance to work the school store, selling different foods and other goods. And also our students get to utilize that and pick up some good snacks. We have yearbook and econ. Hopefully we'll run that next year. Financial algebra has been one of our big things. That is, a lot of our seniors take that. So they also get our central credit for that as well. Jamie Zeller does an amazing job on that, really trying to tie in student loans, car payments, credit cards, credit union information, banking information, home loans, all the different things that really our students need to know as they go out onto their next steps. She does a great job of integrating math and really a lot of good hands-on experience. So if you ever have a chance to see a teacher teach a class, that's a good one because every day it's something practical. The students right now are keeping track of what they spend weekly. I was in there, or spend daily. I was in there the other day. It was amazing. Some students were talking about filling up gas in their dad's truck because they have to drive family members around, their siblings, to practices, other things. And then the kid next to him's like, oh, well, I spend like $15 a day at Starbucks, So it's interesting to see some of the different, spending habits of our students. Some of it's really family focused, and some students were like, I don't spend anything in the month, but I don't have a job. Other ones that had jobs. So looking at a lot of things that way. So it's pretty. Computer science, the district here has a really good computer science program at the high school with Justin Wright, and also at the Innovation Center with our pathway there. We start that off at the mid-level campus in 6th grade with some computer classes with Tiffany Williams, and then also moving on through computer essentials at the mid-level campus. So just some things that way. Health science, again, another good strong program at the mid-level campus. All of our 7th graders are in a 7th grade science, human body systems. That was just down there today with a lot of inquiry, really a lot of experiments. So instead of a lot of book work where you just read this chapter, take a test at the end, read this chapter, the 7th grade team's really done a great job of leading a lot of experiments. So students are always asked questions, and then they have to kind of investigate why that is or why their learning is that way. High school, then we can move on. Jeannie Martin does a great job with our sports therapy classes and that in physiology. We also have 3 of our PE teachers that are also part of our health program there as well. And their Innovation Center has a 7 through 9 health science program. That's taught by Brandon Austin and Crystal Graham. Public service, we're kind of trying to spread out and encompass some of the other things in public service versus just having forensic science and JROTC. So at our mid-level campus, Cadet Corps is a JROTC class that 7th and 8th graders can take. That's a popular course. We had, I think last year, about 60 some students in that for a full year. This year, we're looking at about 50 some there. We're actually just working with facilities a little bit to allow some archery and some other things, rifle marksmanship down there at the junior high that some of those students can learn. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to come here, our JROTC program at the high school, a number of classes you can see there. There are 2 guys, Master Sergeant Bynum and Colonel James. They're always on the go. So if you ever have a chance to meet those guys, see the things, we host a meet here every year, but typically, I usually have to tell them to slow down. They have barbecue with cops coming up pretty soon down at the range. We have Veterans Day Assembly coming up. They're usually asked almost every weekend to do color guard or honor guard somewhere, a number of parades, a number of meets. So they do a good job. Those guys really donate a lot of their time and a lot of the students' time to that. So again, hats off to our students too. We have good instructors there, but it's a lot of things that our students do that way. And we'll talk about later on, there's some data that we'll pull in upcoming report. They'll really talk about where some of those graduates are going when they enlist. So we have that. Yeah, lots of opportunities there. And we also have a good forensic science class that is taught by Keely Teskey. That's a really neat inquiry class too. A lot of the students are learning some science a lot through that neat CSI lens. So they're doing a lot of blood typing, fingerprinting, hair samples. We're really learning the science behind it. The students create portfolios. So those are some neat classes that we have along those ways. And then our STEM technical science area, middle of campus, we have pre-engineering, we have drone aerospace. It's a pretty neat class. The students now are designing and 3D printing their own rockets. And then they go off in the area between the middle school and the junior high. They use air pressure and launch the rockets a few hundred feet. So it's neat because they've designed them on the computer, they've 3D printed them, and then they've gone off, launched them. They're actually doing the math now to see like how high they go, all the different stuff that way. So it's a neat integration of some of the math and science. We also have our 8th grade STEM class. Again, another class that leans away from traditional textbook learning. The students are really getting a lot into analyzing different things. They almost every lab they have food. When I see purchase orders come through from them, it's usually like, why do you need $300 worth of M&Ms? But it's because they're doing labs or Twix candy bars. They talk about composite materials and they're comparing different chocolate bars because different chocolate bars, some are just chocolate, some might be dark chocolate, some have the like little Crispies in them, different things. So then you're comparing the strength and that relating to that different concrete mixtures, how you can mix that up. And then they make concrete bars. So it's really interesting. They were analyzing Oreo cookies, but they're weighing the cream filling and looking for consistency in the cream filling in between Oreo cookies. So a fun way of learning if you're an 8th grade student, but tying it back into the science. Our high school this year, we're offering construction. So a few years ago, we used to have some traditional woodworking cabinetry classes. Now we're bringing that up with Stephen Matzak running construction there. So that's kind of been a great program there. We're offering 2 sections right now a year long. And then we have welding here at the high school. We've done a few modifications to the lab here to help us out. And at the Innovation Center, again, we have that STEM engineering and the robotics ag science program. And then one of the areas I want to get into is just, if you look at those things like, hey, that's pretty cool. There's a lot of hands-on part in the curriculum. How do the teachers learn those things? How do they integrate it? So as part of the strategic plan, the board report, I tried to put in some things because it takes a unique person in order to teach those classes because you need to have the technical skills and then the academic knowledge and then also the teaching knowledge and then there's professional knowledge. So you really are trying to combine a bunch of skill sets that sometimes we don't realize. Along with on top of that, there's a number of things that the state wants to see. And I know that board members, as you look through, I learned a few things I was looking through. If you look at our board policy and the strategic plan related to CT, you look at that like, wow, there's a lot of expectations to a CT program and what teachers have to do. So I think those are some things that as we continue to go through, but it's important to recognize some of those. So I'll just kind of go through some months. So I think it's important for the public and the everybody here. So to be a career and technical education teacher or a CT teacher, you may not have a traditional teaching degree. So a number of our people come from right from business and industry. And then what they do is as they start to work in the school or before they work through a school, they go through a program. It's typically a 15 credit program where they're learning the teaching strategies. They're learning some of the parts on developing lesson plans. You're learning some of the history behind education, classroom management, and then there's some practicum attached to that. So there's things that they have to learn that way. But as I start to look through here, we have advisory meetings. So coming up tomorrow, there actually is a CTE teacher advisory meeting where all of our current technical education teachers will meet at YV Tech along with about 200 other teachers from the region. And at that meeting, then there's other workforce employers. We have ESD 105. We have apprenticeship groups. We have Central will be there, YVC, Perry Tech will be there. So a number of groups. So the teachers aren't only focused in on the classroom instruction, they're trying to build connections to local industry, local post-secondary as well, and make connections that way. The CTSO is called it's a career and technical student organization. So as part of the state requirements, all CT teachers have to be associated with a career and technical organization or a club. So that's one of those duties that they have to do. They create a program of work. We have some really strong ones. FFA, DECA is really strong here. We're starting up some more stuff with Skills USA. Our sports med group has been pretty strong too that way. So there's some different things. We got the STEM building coming up for those teachers. As we go through the year, there's different course updates you're going to have to do. So with a lot of these courses, they're elective courses. So really is trying to build a pathway and promote the courses. We continually adapt and adjust those courses. every year in January. Then we have to go through a state program review for different program areas. We submit the courses we're doing. We have to have those courses approved by advisory committee of business and industry in the area that goes through. So we need to each year, again, this year it's gonna be health science and STEM. So we'll go through that full review. We'll meet with the teachers, update their frameworks, their curriculum that way, and submit that. We also have some work-based learning documentation. So in every class, it's a high school level class, they need to somehow tie that into work-based learning. So whether it be career tours, that might be guest speakers coming in, that might be internships, apprenticeships. There's a lot of different ways, but we need to work in that connection to the future, connection to the career in those classes. So that's kind of the part of work-based learning. And then we also have to, for the state, we have to document every student in the class, what activities they're involved in, put in a large sheet and upload that. So that's some of those things in the background the teachers work on as well. February, then we're looking at promoting courses for upcoming registrations. In the meantime, there we have another advisory meeting with their advisories in March and April. There's some different program evaluations. So again, each program then has another evaluation. They create a 4-year plan. There's some other advisory meetings. Dual credit is another thing. Every high school level class either has to offer a industry recognized credential or a dual credit opportunity. So there's some other standards there that our typical classes don't have that is great for the students, but also just a little more work. Second semester, then we're looking at submitting more work-based learning data. We're completing frameworks. Each CT course, and if you're a board member or if you're a community member that looked online, we have a list of all of our courses. We have right now in the district, we have 137 different CT courses that we offer that are listed in Skyward right now. A number of those are at the Innovation Center because some of those programs will offer 9 classes in a program. But that means each one of those 139 courses has to have a state-approved framework or curriculum that we go through and we start to review every year, go through. That has to be vetted by employers, our general advisory committee. So those are each year we want to go through and start to update those and go through some stuff. So that usually happens by the end of the year. We need to have those updated as well. And then a few more things. We're looking at submitting some documentation. If you look, there's like clean labs and rooms in the summer. That's a big thing. A lot of the teachers don't just have a classroom. They have a classroom and maybe a whole lab that they have to take care of as well. So typically those aren't cleaned and maintained by facilities. Facilities does a great job here of assisting us with things. They go through, help us out. Jack and his team have been great, but that's another thing that the teacher's taking care of, making sure all the equipment's up in order, cleaning, ordering, and different things along that line. And then there's some things throughout the year, different department meetings. A number of our teachers, they're also involved with the high school department or the Innovation Center or mid-level campus. Then they also have their CT department meetings. So additional meetings on that. They have a CT binder, which contains a lot of current technical education information that the teacher needs to have. They're reviewing and updating those frameworks. And those frameworks typically involve industry standards, but they'll also involve math and science and other standards that way, English standards. So they're working to be up to date in those. We talked about that business meeting with business tours, and different things that way. So then let's see. All right. So one thing that I noticed is you say, hey, that's a number of things that teachers have to do. It is a lot and a number of things. One of the things in the board packet too is that our CT teachers are provided an opportunity to earn extended time. So as they're doing these things outside their contract today, they are compensated for that. And there's some notes in your board packet for that for your reference. So that's one thing that we work on a plan ahead of time. We just updated MOU on that to kind of clean up some language, but that's one thing they are compensated. But I want to kind of show because it's one of the things that I think until I started working, maybe even my job now, you don't realize all the different layers that they need to do besides the classroom instruction. So it's hats off to our teachers and the great work they do, to meet those classes and make things engaging, not only learning equipment, using equipment, but then teaching it and connecting with employers and things that way. So some initiatives for this year. We've been busy the last 2 years. There's a lot of different things that we've been doing, but our enrollment at the Innovation Center, the first year we started off around 80 FTE. Last year, around 140 we averaged in the end. And this year we started the school year with a 202 at the Innovation Center. So those numbers there are growing, and that's great with the addition of programs. We already kind of started looking at what next year is going to be like, or even we're 3 weeks into this year, but we're starting to look at next year that way. So looking at also increasing and expansion of additional programs. We talked about that for the Innovation Center. One neat thing is I had the opportunity last year, and I know that we had talked about, there's some questions on like travel outside of state, different things. So it was a neat thing where last year I went to Iowa and I got to tour a school district that has a lot of innovative things. But one of the neat things was this PACE program, Practical Assessment Exploration System. And what that is, they take their special education transition students and they actually have kind of a sit-up grid and you learn different workplace skills. And then through those skills, you can check off the different things you kind of progress through. So it's a real neat, clean, orderly system to document the skills you're learning. So that's one thing we're looking at bringing to the school here. But that was one of the neat parts about being able to go tour another school, see what they're doing, and then connect with the teachers that were there and some of the instructors, and then come back and be able to bring that. So that's one thing we'll be bringing this fall. And as far as funding that works in with our Carl Perkins federal funding. So that's another grant that pays for that program as we bring it into the school and helps a number of students that typically they don't get to take advantage of some of these neat programs. So it's going to be something we're going to be able to bring in, teach some workplace skills. And at the highlight of that program or the capstone of the project program is then they're out working at Summit Thrift. Steins, Ace has done a great job. Ray's has done a great job. So we have a few local employers that have done a great job with some of those students that typically, maybe be, well, you can't take some of the other classes, so they're stuck in some classes. So I think this is a neat way to get students, all of our students, really the opportunities that they need for the future and to be successful future. So that was a neat program from DNC. We're looking to increase work-based learning. Apprenticeships, keep growing that. We're kind of just starting that up, increase industrial recognized credentials. And one of the big things I want to do this year is really like to support teacher instruction, professional development through the grants. And if you look at the board package, we've been able to get a number of pieces of equipment through grants. But now what I want to do is make sure we can support the teachers, because it doesn't do us any good if we have equipment sitting in a corner and the teacher doesn't have the training, or the teacher's trying to come in a weekend and try to learn it themselves. So the more things I can do to support our teachers in the classroom, the better I think it is for our students in the end. Then here's a few more things. We're working with partnering ESD 105. We have a general advisory committee tomorrow. Working on that. We're updating our futures website. So there's some few things coming on that, and continue to work on our pathway development. Do some more career connected learning opportunities. So we're looking to 2 or 3 different businesses this year with teacher groups. It's kind of nice. We're able to tour and then we're able to debrief afterwards and really look at how does it apply in my classroom? What can I see? What kind of technology? So if I'm a science teacher, what kind of science is there in the climatized storage for apples? You start going there and our chemistry teacher was like, wow, I didn't know all this had to happen in order to make sure their apples are still available to be, in June, you can still have apples. You don't have to wait. Or in May, you'll still have apples. So it's just neat, all the science behind that and some of the math and just things that way. So we're looking to tour some different businesses. And then one thing is I didn't present any graduate data with this because we are working with ESD 105 and Washington STEM. And we're looking at trying to pull our data from 2017 to now on our graduation completers. So we should be able to work with Student Clearinghouse on pulling up what kind of programs they go into, some of the different jobs, what our apprentices have been up to, and then looking at some of our students that have enlisted in the military too. So our goal is ideally for January, February, I'll be able to present a data summit on that information. So we'll be able to see what's happened over the past 5-6 years with our students and graduates there. And then one of the neat things is looking at our strategic plan. One of the big core parts of our strategic plan fits right into that career connected learning, having our students think beyond just the classroom, what are the futures like? So that's something that as we work through our strategic planning process over the next few months, that's gonna be really neat to see that big component of it, the future, the planning of it, and then how that can connect to the work we just finished with Portrait of a Lifelong Learner. Those things will be able to connect. So instead of just creating more layers of initiatives, we've really combined, and really it's all going to go in the strategic plan that'll be able to drive us for the next 6-10 years. So it's going to be great that way. So a lot of neat things happening. We could spend a lot of time, as Dr. Finch said, this is one aspect of my job. It's kind of neat because you get to see a whole bunch of different aspects. You get to see a lot of neat things our buildings are doing, from elementary, mid-level campus, innovation center, high school. We got a lot of neat things going on. But there's a few things related to current technical education. So I'm glad to take questions from the board. There's more stuff in the strategic plan. I got a lot of information I can give you, but yes.
So this might be a better question for Mr. Conley. And that is, back on the review of the grants, there are a couple of ESSER grants. Do you know if those ESSER grants, that those are different monies than the school district received for the COVID-related learning loss and so forth? That's a different aspect of ESSER that has nothing else to do with those other monies?
Yep, it was, the state got federal funds through ESSER and then they put it through iGrants or through grant systems. So it was other grants we applied for through the state, not related to what they gave to the district.
And those were competitive.
Yep, and those are all competitive grants.
Second question following that, are these grants, so it's interesting, these grants sometimes are spend the money first and then we'll reimburse you. Some are, we'll give you the money and then you show us that you spent it correctly. Which are these, I mean, are they all different or it depends or?
These are, as you know, Mr. Conley pointed out before, a lot of them are the ones where we need to spend the funds first, then we claim after. So the district's done a great job of really looking at these grants and planning out for next year how we spend grants funds. So we make sure that we have funding and reserve so we don't get too far in grants. So a lot of these are ones that now we plan for this next year. Some of these are continuing, some of the core plus ones are ones we can apply for every year. And a lot of it will supplement training. So a lot of these aren't made for things that hiring staffing, and then all of a sudden next year you don't get it. A lot of these we try to use for equipment that can last for a number of years, or training on that equipment. But yes, most of these. So we really work on our timing on when we spend them, so we make sure we're not investing too much upfront and waiting for claims later.
Thank you.
Yep. Those are good questions because there's something I don't think public or other people understand, know about, that you need to spend it up front.
That I don't always understand.
Yeah.
So, good, thank you.
I have some questions on the teachers.
Yeah.
How many teachers total are teaching CTE classes?
We have just about in the board and the strategic plan, I've listed our staff in there. So it's on page 17, 18, and 19 and 20. So you get in there, we have a number of CTE staff, either full-time or part-time related. So if I go through, I believe right now we're at about 36 or 37 are directly connected, either most of them fully, but a few of them part-time through CT. So that's one area I'd say that in the past 2 years, our staffing has almost doubled in a way. I mean, the Innovation Center is all additional CT staffing, and our FTE has come up to increase, to fund that amount too. But it's we're a pretty big department when you look at what happens overall in the district.
Is everybody CTE certified?
They are, if you look on this packet, it'll go through and it'll tell you their certification. We have a few that are conditionally certified, but about 90% of them are. I think we have 4 or 5 right now that are conditionally certified, and they're working on their certifications for initial.
And how many of those teachers have come directly from industry?
No, I know you have one, but I'll just give it. I would say our recent hires, the hires that we have for this year, we have one at the mid-level campus in 8th grade science, came from business industry, but I've been teaching for the past 6-7 years. One at the high school, Mr. Matzak, he taught for us a little bit last year. He came from Ajax, an apprenticeship committee, doing some teaching for them, but more adult teaching, but he came out of business industry. So he's relatively new into teaching. And then our 2 at the Innovation Center came from business industry and are teaching now. So lately we've hired a lot.
So of those 4, it sounds like the first one has their teacher certification.
Yep.
The other 3 are working towards that.
The other 3 have, one of them actually, Mr. Matzak just received his master's in CT education. So he has his teaching degree that way, but the other ones are working towards their CT certification. So they may have business and industry certifications, but they don't have like your math degree or anything that way as far as teachers. They're working on their CT certification.
And you said it's 15 credit program.
Yep.
Do they have is it a year long that they have in order to get that certification? 2 years? How long is that?
Yep. So there's a few different programs they can run through. So they can either run through Eastern Washington has an online program. So they either could do that. We had one teacher do it last year, amazing teacher, Jen Briggs at the mid-level campus. She completed it in like 3 months. She probably would not recommend that, but she did a great job and want to hammer it out. And again, she's a stellar teacher there. We have teachers that could do it in 2 years. Right now, we've just worked on on some language that would give a teacher until March of their 2nd year to complete that program. And there's some summer intensive options. Central has a 6-week program that they can do. There are some online ones, a number of different options. But our goal is the teachers would complete that before the end of their 2nd year. That way, that's when their conditional certification is up. So we can make sure they're committed into getting that training, and they need that. And actually, we've just been talking internally and then as a region of some different options we can do for those teachers that come from business industry, kind of a summer program where we can actually coach them up on some of the different teaching strategies. Because that's one area we found us and a number of other districts is they're business experts, but they don't have some of the teaching parts. So just how do we give them some tools to help them out lesson planning, learning targets, some of the different classroom management. So that's something we'll be developing over the spring and into summer, is how do we work that into those credit programs, but how do we do that on a regional basis? I think that's one of the neat things with our CT program here as a region is there's nowhere in the state that we found that has a group of CT directors, ESD, other places that work well together and collaborate. Where I'm all the time talking daily almost to Jeff Cochran, who has a similar role to me, and Sela, Monica down in Toppenish, Bonnie Smith now in YV Tech. So we're all collaborating, trying to build each other up and help each other's programs. So I think that's one of the neat things is we have a number of colleagues that anytime you can call and ask questions to and support each other and help grow each other's schools.
And then the number of, you've added twofold to your staff. I would assume that those are coming from general education. How are you supporting them getting their hours so that they can become CT certified? If somebody is an algebra teacher and wants to get CT certified, how are you supporting them?
So we're supporting them. They could take the class, and then we actually do reimbursement for the staff. So if we have a staff go through the program, reimburse their tuition as they go through one of those CT programs. That way, and then a lot of it is trying to train. If they come from a traditional background, a lot of it we need, in order to be CT certified, you need to have some sort of business connection or something that way. So if you ran your own business or you were employed in some sort of related area you're teaching. So that's one of the interesting things with CT is we've had people apply, let's say for our welding position, be like, oh, I'm an art teacher, but really great to weld because I think it's cool. Well, unless you have 6,000 hours of industry related experience, I can't say that you should be conditionally certified, and the state won't in the end certify you. So that's one of the challenges that schools have run into is we have programs, and sometimes it's hard to have, now with kind of a teacher shortage, schools have run into that where they can't find somebody that has that business and industry. So we can conditionally certify somebody if they're close or if we need to fill a spot for a year, but I wouldn't want to hire somebody permanently to teach welding that doesn't have a welding background. I wouldn't want to have them in the lab because it's not safe and trained. So that's, I think, one of those trickier spots in CT where some courses you can bring people in from other areas, and some courses you don't have the qualifications. Health science, I want Jeannie Martin teaching our high school students health science and sports therapy because she's one of the best in the area. So I'll make sure we have well-qualified people to teach those courses.
And then you said you have 139 classes. How are you getting all those? How are you divvying up the work to get the frameworks done?
Good thing after you get them submitted, you just have to do some updates, but it's been a lot of work on us to try, especially the Innovation Center, because there's been this year, we just had like 45 of them that I had to submit back in March and then do some tweaks to it. So it is a lot of hours that we put in. We try to work with our instructors. There is some extended time that we've been able to pay them above and beyond if they're working on a framework to develop that, but it's a number of either myself or Russ Tooman or a lot of it too, again, that network. If I know another school offers a similar class, I can ask their CT director, they'll provide the framework, and then we just have to modify it to meet what we're doing here. So that's one area that's really helped out. The state also has some state approved frameworks. They have about 40 of them that they've gone through and done a lot. They say, hey, you teach this curriculum this way. You just have to submit it, but all the work's been done for you. And a lot of times that it has an equivalency credit for science or English, or there just is a CAD one now for art. So if they learn, computer design on the computer, they can get a half art credit for it with that equivalency.
And the auto-manage machines. Those are super cool. I've got to play with some. They're amazing. And so what's the plan on the usage of those? Is that going to be a daily? Is that going to be a weekly? Is it going to be by unit? What's the plan?
Yeah.
You've got two of them.
Good question. Yep. The Innovation Center is one and the high school is one. And the goal would be is I would say every week that they'd be used multiple times, in Jeannie's class they use. We're actually hosting a regional training here on the 29th. So the teacher in-service day in the afternoon, the Adamage rep is going to be here, and we're going to bring in YB Tech has one. YB Tech has two. Davis has two. Actually, there's like 13 other schools in the area that have the table. So it's going to be nice to bring those in so teachers can learn from each other and from the rep. Then the nice part is with that is as we go through, if biology class or another class is doing a similar unit or forensic science, they can come in and use it. They are somewhat portable, but we don't want to be moving around too much. So it's one of the things that we can work to collaborate as we're using it. So multiple classes can be, you can have animals. So our animal science class would come in and look at the, circulatory and skeletal system of a dog or a cow or something like that on there. So the goal is to be using, I hate to see technology and classroom resources sitting there and may only used once. So that's our goal, is to get our instructors trained so that way our students can have advantage of using the equipment.
Is it challenge, and I talked to Tim about this, is a challenge finding people working in the industry to move into a school district and work, when they take a major cut of pay, usually do that.
It depends on the role. A lot of people have worked in industry and they feel like they have that calling where maybe they've done some training in the industry. So they've trained other people in there and they enjoy that teaching part of it. But it is a challenge. I think overall right now in teaching, we have a challenge of finding qualified instructors for different things. So I think that's part of just, how do we get the word out and then how do we go? So it is a challenge, especially when we want to work with teachers, and as we bring in different teachers that have a vision, because that's the easiest thing is to work with someone that says, hey, just point me in the right direction. And I want to keep making steps and jumping ahead. We have some great hires that are doing that. Hardest part is when you get somebody that you hire in and you're nudging them all the time. But I think we've done a great job being able to connect with some people. We found some really good ones that have visions and they get excited about where they can go with the programs, and hopefully providing the right training, the right technology, the right equipment. And I think our student body, we have a lot of great support too. I mean, we got Kristen Johnson's here in the audience, and she's done a great job of helping with our new business marketing teacher here. Amy Osborne's been a great mentor. So I think that's one of the neat things with West Valley School District is we have really good people that help each other out, and they all have each other's back and they collaborate. So that's one of the things. I think it's neat because it's not just, hey, this is a career and technical education department and you guys are yours and I'm an art teacher. We have people that are helping each other across departments. Our JROTC instructor, Greg Bynum's done a great job of really collaborating with a number of programs in the high school. So I think that's a neat thing we have here is people don't like to stay in silos. They like to help each other out and support each other that way. So answered part of your question, added on a few more, but it's neat. We got a lot of really good people to work with just in the education, but then a lot of our other support, IT, facilities, central offices, a lot of great people trying to help each other out, our admin. All right.
Where did he go? Oh, there. Thanks, Jed. Okay. On to item 8, public comment of non-discussion items. So this is the point in the meeting where the public is welcome to provide any public comment on non-discussion agenda items for tonight. Our discussion items are a number of policy additions and revisions that we're going to take later in the meeting. So if you have comment on the policy additions and revisions, that would be the later public comment period. Also, in action items, we have the career and technical education approval, strategic plan approval, the approval of the Teamsters collective bargaining agreement, and approval of the junior high gym bleacher project. So those will be a little bit later in the meeting for action items. So on any other topic that I did not just indicate, now is the time for public comment on non-discussion agenda items.
So we did have the sign in. Heidi Mokel and Kathy Warren had signed in for attendance, and that is, we do have policy about attendance. So perhaps you want to wait until the discussion for your comments. And then Ryan Matthews had signed in. I believe it says elections. So Ryan, would you like to speak?
Good evening. Just as a quick note, high school PTSA and Ben McMurray are working right now on a candidate forum, likely to be the second week of October. Ballots for the elections this fall should hit the mail on or about October the 20th. So they're working on the selected date. The event would be held downstairs in the auditorium, and obviously will be open for all community members to attend. As with kind of typical past PTSA events, there'll be a solicitation for comments or for questions, and then key out good questions to ask of all the candidates. So more information to come, but I was asked to share that.
Thank you. Any other public comments on non-agenda items? Oh, Mr. Marinacci.
Wasn't planning on speaking tonight, however, after listening to Jed speak, shout out. My son, my oldest son who graduated, really enjoyed, I hope I have her name correct, Jamie Zeller. He has taken away some really nice financial literacy, and being the son of somebody who's in the financial industry, boy, that really has been good. And so just shout out, wherever she is, a great job. And another thing I'd like to say, Jed, thank you for explaining the value of travel. I hope that future out-of-state travel will articulate the benefits of bringing home that travel. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, I'll close the public comment on non-discussion agenda items. So then item 9 is approval of consent agenda. There are 2 items at this point: approval of minutes from August 22nd, and then approval of August 2023's payroll. Unless anybody has any questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
By a nose, Mr. Jaeger wins. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Okay. On to item 10, which are discussion items this evening. Policy additions and revisions. Dr. Finch, an introductory comment or two?
Sure, certainly. We received these recommendations from the Washington State School Directors Association in the policy update. This is the most I've ever seen in one policy update. Most of these are related to legislation last spring, and so these are to get our policies updated for this upcoming school year. And then in addition to the policies that were listed under discussion, then we've moved the ones that were under consent agenda. Those 3 that were under consent agenda, those are just the change from terminology of emergency expulsion to emergency removal. So that's the excused and unexcused absences, school-based threat assessment, and student discipline. The only changes to those policies would be changing the terminology from emergency expulsion to emergency removal. And that is as per legislation that was passed last spring. The others had put together a summary, but just real quickly, you'd like me to go through and just summarize this?
Sure.
Yeah. So the first is policy 1610, conflict of interest. This is actually what we heard from our district council this spring or this summer during the study session, and that is an increase in the limit from $1,500 per month to $3,000 per month for a contract that benefits a director or officer. So that is allowed up to that threshold of $3,000 per month. Next is the policy 2121 substance abuse program. So there was legislation passed that the Department of Health is going to create a website that will have information about substance abuse programs. While the Department of Health has not actually completed that yet, we still want to update our policy that this district will include a link from our website to the Department of Health website. Highly capable program is policy 2190. Since we sent out the board packet, we did receive information from Wendy Clark, who is our coordinator for that program. She had some concerns the way WASDA had worded this because it wasn't clear that some of the information in the RCW still is applicable. The universal screen was the ensuring that there's a universal screen for a highly capable program, and West Valley already implements that practice. But Wendy did have some terminology. We can go ahead and adopt the first reading, but then we're going to share with you some slight tweaks that Wendy Clark is recommending for us for the highly capable program. But the main gist of the change is that there's a universal screen of all students for the program. We do that at second grade in West Valley. And so we're doing that already, but that is in the legislation that there must be a universal screen. And so we want to make sure we put that in our policy. Next policy is 2230, transition to kindergarten. So previously our transition to kindergarten program was funded by Basic Ed, and those students were counted as kindergarten students. In the recent legislation, it's now been changed to a categorical program. So there still is transition to kindergarten, but it's a separate program and separately funded by the state. And so there needs to be a separate policy regarding that. Next is policy 3207, prohibition of harassment, intimidation, or bullying. WASDA has added of students. So they wanted to clarify that this policy is regarding students. In West Valley, we've adopted policy 5161, civility in the workplace, and that's applicable to all. And so we included that in the policy revision. Next is two policies regarding some legislation on basically how you could withhold a diploma because of fines and fees. And so in policy 3231, student records, WASDA is recommending deleting the information about withholding diploma. And then policy 3520, that's the update to basically the law on at what threshold is a district able to withhold a diploma due to damages to district policy. And so we have that update in 3520. Policy 4001 is the public information program. And basically it's the same information about having the Department of Health website. And so they just want to make sure that in our public information program that we also highlight that the Department of Health is going to have this website, and we will link our website to that website. Policy 5010, non-discrimination affirmative action. WASDA has provided clarification regarding discriminatory harassment, so more of a definition of what that is. For contracts, policy 5050. This is updating with the recent legislation that a district could offer a 3-year contract to a school principal. We're not anticipating using that provision at this time, but we need to update our policy to be in alignment with the new law. Policy 6020 is systems of funds and accounts. This provides an update to include clarification that the use of capital project funds can be used for a property lease, which is 10 years or longer, and contains an option for district to purchase the leased property. It also allows for transportation vehicle fund to be used for a feasibility study to transition from gas or diesel school buses to electronic or zero emission school buses, and to install charging stations for the school bus. Next is policy 6217, electronic funds transfer. This is a new policy that authorizes the district to use electronic funds transfer and automated clearinghouse transfer transactions. We don't anticipate using this at this time. However, there have been some organizations that we're aware that will not do anything else besides electronic fund transfer. So we may be in the position in the future that we may need to use that. Policy 6220 is bid or request for proposal requirements. This has been updated to provide references to women and minority-owned businesses as required by federal law. Next is policy 6530, insurance. This is a WASDA recommendation that it be updated to include a reference to the School Employees Benefit Board, which is the SEB, which is what our school employees now have for their insurance. Next is policy 6550, and this is the capitalization threshold for leases and subscription-based information technology arrangements. So I guess the acronym is SBITAs. West Valley does use the SBITAs for our IT department. And so we do need to adopt this policy, which is recommended by WASDA. Next is policy 6605, student safe walking, biking, and riding of buses. Basically, there's a reference to the Safe Routes to School plan that's been updated. We already comply with that requirement, and also that the safe routes or information needs to be in our buses, which we have already. Our safe routes to school are posted already to our district transportation department website. So we're already complying with the recommended policy, but we certainly want to follow through with the policy recommendation from WASDA. And finally is policy 6700, nutrition, health, and physical education. There's minor adjustments to this policy, such as clarification that recess time for students should be safe, inclusive, and high quality. And so we are recommending that we follow through with the WASDA recommendations. All right, that's a mouthful. That's like I say, the most I've ever seen in 1 month coming out of WASDA's recommendations, but it looks like everything there that we've reviewed with especially a lot of these are operations. So we've had, we had Jamie Schmidt, our transportation director. I talked with her regarding the transportation one. Talked to Joe Conley, our assistant superintendent for business operations, regarding quite a few of these about contracts and the funds and accounts and electronic transfer, et cetera. So we've gone through and vetted these and are recommending the adoption as we presented with the markup to the board in the board packet. All right, open for discussion.
I have three of them that I'd like to put out for the good of the order. First is 3207, prohibition of harassment, intimidation, or bullying of students. In your summary, Dr. Finch, and then looking at the policy, there is no cross-reference in the policy to 5161. It's not actually articulated, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Thank you for catching that. There, we had a draft at one time that had that reference, and that has been lost in our getting that draft to you in the board packet. We will definitely have a reference. It was to be where it says on page 1, it says this policy and a company procedure. That was supposed to say policy 3207 and a company procedure do not govern harassment, intimidation, or bullying of a employee, volunteer, parent, legal guardian, or community member. And the next sentence was that
something along the lines
policy,
where it's cross-referenced.
Yep, policy
Yeah.
5161, civility in the workplace is applicable to all. That was the next sentence.
Okay.
So I apologize for that.
That's great. And then in addition to, that's kind of where it seemed like it made sense to put in.
Yep.
And then down below where it actually, although this is not part of the exact policy, the cross references should also indicate that policy, I believe, or at least that's good practice.
Yes. The cross reference, we would add the policy 5161.
Yes. Okay. So that's a comment. And I think with that one, we can still pass on first reading, and then it can be updated for the second reading. So then my next comment is to 5050. And I'm gonna qualify my remarks before I talk about an objection that I have to the policy in general, that this is not a commentary about any principle that we currently have, and that I absolutely think that no principal should have a 3-year contract or a longer than 1-year contract. And this isn't designed to be a commentary about any of our people as they are now. However, I'm generally not in favor of having multiple year contracts. I know that Dr. Finch has one for the school board members, as school board members know, and we have a multiple year contract with Dr. Finch, but I just, as a matter of fiscal responsibility, the longer these contracts are, the more it's a liability it's more of a financial liability to the district. And that sounds really, again, very cold-hearted, but I come from a world, and most people in this world do not have multiple year employment contracts. And I just can't get my head wrapped around that concept, even if the law permits it. So I would rather that just be stricken. That could be something that's part of the collective bargaining agreement with the principals. It just doesn't sit right with me that that's going to be a school district policy. That's my comment for folks' consideration. Thirdly, would be 6220. So this is on the bid or request for proposal requirements. I generally don't have a problem with it, except on page 1, article 1A. So it talks about furniture, supplies, and equipment, and then, you know, the various amounts, and then there's some language stricken about well, it goes on. It says the second bullet, between $40,000 and $75,000, the board will follow its informal competitive bidding procedure. Yet, and then there's some language that's stricken. Says by requiring quotes of at least 3 different sources to be obtained in writing or by telephone and recorded to the public to review. So that's taken out. But the phrase informal competitive bidding procedure, I have no idea what that is, and I don't know what that is defined as. So, and it's not defined, or at least I couldn't find that it was defined elsewhere in the policy. I kind of like the stricken language. I don't know why we would take that out. So I'd ask that be put back in. And maybe there's a valid reason, but I don't, again, this is somebody who writes these kinds of things for a living. I just don't like a phrase like informal competitive bidding procedure when that is not really a defined term in here, but I don't know what that means. So those are my
Would you want to take
comments.
it out, or would you?
No,
like
no,
it defined?
I just want the language. Well, it's how it was before. I actually thought it was pretty good. It says follow its informal competitive bidding procedure by requiring quotes from at least 3 different sources to be obtained in writing or by telephone and recorded for the public to review. I actually like that. I think it should, I would
Well,
just
that's
support it.
Yeah.
Leave it back in or put it back in, not strike it, or actually define what competitive bidding procedure means, or reference where that I'm supposed to find the definition for that. That's
Right.
I get. I mean, again, I
Those
don't.
good questions.
Yeah,
It's
just-
basically,
yeah.
we can do some homework on this and bring it
Yeah.
back for second reading.
Right.
Yeah, with-
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are the 3 policies that,
So,
and then one last question,
Sure.
a question.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, so between now and second reading, so the prohibition, harassment, intimidation, bullying of students, we'll get the reference to policy 5161 in there. For contracts, we'll need to double check and see. Sometimes the way the law is written, it'll say that the district shall adopt policy.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see, we'll just double check that. But and see if we're required to adopt that about the 3-year contract or not. And we'll just bring that back to you for information at the next board meeting. And then same with this informal bidding process. We'll just have to double check on this and double check on whether we should keep that in there or not. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I guess back to the one with the non-substantive changes, the
changing emergency expulsion to emergency removal.
Yeah. So, is there a difference to the student about expulsion versus removal in their record, or do you know why the change in terminology?
There was discussion from the legislature and then it passed, and that was the idea that emergency expulsion is a very short-term period, and it's usually to remove the student so you can do an investigation. The term expulsion could be stigmatizing to a person, and that if that's on their record that they were expelled, even emergency expulsion. And so that's why the legislature made the change to emergency removal. There's still expulsion, which means you're expelled from the district for an extended length of time. But for the emergency expulsion, now it's emergency removal in order to give us time to investigate the situation. And then there's not this stigmatizing language of having an expulsion on your record.
But the change in terminology doesn't affect the actual student's rights to challenge the disciplinary action that's been taken.
Exactly. It's
Okay.
the same process, the same timelines. Just for the audience, a person can be emergency removed, a student can be emergency removed for 10 days. Within that 10-day period, that gives you time to investigate as administrator and then make a decision within those 10 days. After the 10th day, there has to be a decision. Is it readmittance, is a short-term, long-term suspension, expulsion, that type of thing. And so all those timelines and the actual procedure stays the same. It's just the terminology that changes.
Okay, so the removal, then 10 days or whatever, to do the investigation, that in itself could morph into or result in the expulsion, which would be a long-term removal from the district. Is that correct?
Right. After the investigation, if it's determined that the student's a threat to being on campus, then the student can be expelled. And that is still that terminology of expulsion. It's just during that short-term 10-day window of the investigation, that's now called an emergency removal.
Okay.
As I was reading through these as well, I had an uneasy feeling about policy 5050 with the length of time of those contracts. And again, not a commentary to the administrators that we have in district, but that does make me uneasy. Policy 6700, there's terms in there that I don't know if we're going to be able to, I want to know how we're going to monitor those.
Mhm.
Safe, inclusive, and high quality. Can you touch on each of those words and how we're going to be able to monitor those?
That's a great question. And that is just the recommendation that we had from WASDA. So
If
we
a
don't-
child goes out to recess and is sitting against the wall reading a book, is that considered high quality recess? I mean, these
Right,
are some of the things as an educator I'm seeing in this, and how do we ensure that recess time is inclusive? Are we going to train our playground staff to ensure that it's inclusive? I understand the safety piece, but we do in our facilities. Oftentimes we do see that there is potentially unsafe grounds or whatnot.
Well,
And then as far as high quality. So I think before we put that into policy, I would like a little bit of clarification on what those terms mean.
I do appreciate that. However, safety, if there is any safety concerns, we need to know about those immediately and follow up with those. That's been a real focus of mine with our grounds, and appreciate the work that our facilities department has done to address any safety concerns that we've had. But you're absolutely right. Some of these are very subjective terms. So we'll need to take a look at that. And maybe we can tweak that language in second reading.
And does it differentiate between physical and
Any other discussion?
I'm going to ask a question.
Sure.
If one of these policies is pulled out of it, hold on, strike that, start over. When we get to the approval, sometimes we take these as a group, sometimes we pull them out individually for individual consideration. Let's say that we do that with one of these policies. And the vote tonight is 2-2. That doesn't mean that the policy is dead or that it can never come back around. It just failed the first reading, and administrations could still come back and reintroduce the policy after it does some additional work. Correct?
It's a good Robert's Rule of Order question, because I think I'm not sure if you would bring it to second reading if
Well,
it
you
hasn't passed first reading yet.
No, you wouldn't. It wouldn't pass the first reading.
Right.
So
You can bring it back again for first reading.
You
at
bring
any
it back
time.
again, a modified policy, potentially modified policy for a first reading.
Right.
Okay.
But another option would just be the board could request that we work on the policy. Either way, you can approve it first reading and have some adjustments needed for second reading. If the adjustments aren't to your liking, you could, table it at that time and have us continue to work on it. So that's something that we could do. Or you could ask us to just pull it from the agenda from this meeting, and we could work on it and bring it back for first reading at a later time. So
Well,
either way
yeah.
it would work.
Yeah. Okay.
And I do believe none of these are in need of being passed immediately. So we can always work on it and bring it back for a first reading at a future time.
Okay. I'm just going to speak for myself, and you guys chime in if you feel uncomfortable. I feel fine with with all of them except 50-50, the one about the contracting and the 3-year. The rest, I think, can be updated for second reading, and that'll be fine. I don't feel comfortable with 50-50, but when I did the research this afternoon, I don't think it's required that we have to adopt that. But, again, as I've said many times, I'm not the school district's lawyer. I don't want to be the school district's lawyer. And I would feel better about knowing whether we have to have that language or not. So my suggestion would be to pull 50-50, or to remove it from the agenda tonight, let Dr. Finch do his research, or we can take it up as a separate item and we can vote tonight on the first reading.
I'd like to do the same with 6,700
Sure.
until we get
I
some
agree.
clarification on those terms.
On those two, yes. I cannot imagine anybody that would tell us that we have to give principles for your contracts. I don't think that's what they meant in this at all. But Peter's got to look into it to make sure.
So I think that, okay, so the change to the agenda will be that we will pull 50-50 and 6,700 tonight. We will not vote on those. And we'll let Dr. Finch do a little bit of research and he can report back to us. But, obviously we'll take public comment. Are there any others?
Well, if I understood Dr. Finch's reply to the initial question regarding those two policies, we could still approve the first reading with the recommended changes being made before the second reading. So we wouldn't have to pull anything out. We could take care of it as a group, and then Dr. Finch would bring it back to us with the proposed revisions.
I think I'd rather have them come back with the revisions and look at it as a first reading all over. Take it brand new. So do we take a vote on this? And if it goes 3-1, then it goes 3-1, and then the first reading is passed.
That's right.
Correct. And so do we take it as a first reading, and then those have an asterisk saying that we need to have some work done on those again for the second reading.
Well, the minutes will reflect that, okay, so going down the path of if the votes say on a particular policy that we pull out 3-1 on the first reading, that still doesn't preclude
Still
work
passes.
being done to the second reading. I think that's to Mr. Meyer's point. Relative to 50-50, just me, I probably vote no on that tonight, just as a matter of principle based upon what I said. If the vote's 2-2, that's why I asked the question that I asked. It just means that it doesn't move on to second reading. Dr. Finch can still do his work and represent it. So that's fine. So that's why I walked down the road of those questions.
Well, whichever, the board decides is the cleanest way to go about it. Because as you've heard me in the past many times, my leanings don't disagree with you and Mr. Mokel at all when it comes to multiple year contracts. And that's, again, no reflection on anybody that
Right.
we have working within the district at this present time. But, if revisions are going to be made to it, then to me anyway, I can't see why it makes that much of a difference whether the revisions are made before we're presented with the second reading, or if we make it completely separate.
So let me just say this then. Why don't we, when we get to that part of the meeting, if somebody can make the appropriate motion for what policies we're going to make a motion to approve. And if there's a motion to approve 50-50 as presented first reading, we can take a vote. And same thing with 6,700, we can take a vote. And I think either way, Dr. Finch has additional work to do, which is fine, which is fine. And everybody can vote however they want to vote. And there's no, I think it's fine either way, as long as, I just want everybody to make an informed decision on their vote tonight, so that we don't assume. That's why I was asking the questions.
And again, even if it doesn't pass first reading, we can still do the work to review
Right.
and then bring back for first reading again. We can do that. So
Great.
either way, it'd be fine.
Okay. I know everybody is just riveted by all of this procedure.
So are we taking these one at a time? Are we gonna take them as a group?
Well, we're gonna, so the first, okay, so next step is we're gonna take public comment on agenda items. So we'll let the nice folks in the audience that want to speak on this, speak on it. When we get to the action portion in 12E, somebody can make a motion to approve certain policies in a group. And we can also take individually certain policies that we have discussed this evening. And I think that I've identified, at least at this point in time, 2 that we want to separately consider. So I can make that motion because I've highlighted them when we get to that point. So next step, anything else from the board? Okay. All right, so now we're on to item 11, which is the public comment on the discussion items that we just had. So there were a couple people that signed up for that. And then we'll take whatever, since we are not a packed school board meeting tonight, I'm gonna be lenient on our usual 3-minute rule, but would ask that you be respectful of the time. But I'll be lenient on the 3-minute rule tonight because if for no other reason, I don't think in my time being on a school board, we've not taken 20 first readings. So there's a lot to chew on. So only because she signed up first, Heidi Mokel is first. Oh, you guys are you're gonna tag team. Okay.
That's Heidi Mokel and Kathy Warren, teachers at Cottonwood.
Hi, I'm Kathy Warren, and this is Heidi Mokel, 2nd and 3rd grade teachers. We are coming with a concern about attendance and wanting to put more of an emphasis on a positive attendance policy in the district. We've both been teaching about 30 years. We've really seen a change in the past few years with the value of educational time with some families. In the last few years, post-COVID, but not all due to sickness. And so not with all of our families, but just the increase in the number of students that we're seeing with attendance issues. We have many students in our classes that are missing 20 or days more a year.
Yeah. So last year, out of 19 students, I had 8 who were chronically absent, which means they were gone 10% or greater of the number of days enrolled in school, which is about 18 days. And so chronic absence doesn't delineate between excused, unexcused, disciplinary or mental health wellness days. So some of the absences that we're noticing are vacations, taking the day off for your birthday. These are actually ones that we've had probably this year already. Taking the day off for your birthday, going to their own or a sibling sporting events out of town, hair appointments, different lessons that are happening during the school day. So last spring, I decided to ask my colleagues for some data. And the data I asked for was how many days did you have your full class there from bell to bell? So for me, it would be 8:45 to 3:30 at the elementaries. Our transition kindergarten had 14 days that those littles were there from bell to bell. One of our first grade classes had 27 days that all kids were there bell to bell. Second grade classes were 20 and 27 days. Third grade classes were 48 to 52 days. Fourth grade classes were 16 and 11 days that all kids were there about bell to bell. And then fifth grade was 14, 16, and 6 days.
So we are concerned because a lot of the work that we're doing cannot be duplicated at home. We cannot just send home the book and the worksheets that we've been working on. We are incorporating math talks, hearing how other people solve problems. We're doing hands-on science. We're learning how to think. We're having discussions in novels. We're doing collaborative projects, learning how to speak in groups, how to speak in public, speech services, specialized education. We're trying to do small group instruction, and kids are missing some of that small group instruction. They're missing time for their IEP goals. So we're concerned because we're having a hard time trying to catch kids up.
So when you look at missing 1 week, whether they're sick a week, whether they're on vacation, that means an elementary student misses 7 to 8 hours of reading and 5 to 7 hours of math. So what happens if this time frame is when I'm introducing 2-digit addition or beginning fraction concepts or a pre-writing of a report? I don't have 10 to 15 hours when that student comes back the next week to make up those skills, and that leaves holes in our students. My time to reteach is those missed lessons is often at recess. This means that I have less time to plan instruction. The reteaching usually is minimal. I can't make up 6 hours in one day of recess. So missing school inhibits the students from making connections with other students and teachers, and therefore making them feel like they don't belong and they're not connected.
And we also talked about, in discussion with other people that are trying to hire people in the community, employers are having a hard time even managing this in the workforce. So when we're talking about school to work connections, we're trying to foster that sense of attendance and sense of showing up to work, even in the workplace. So we know that there's policies in place. We've read the policies. We are doing the letters home. The schools are doing some good things. We've got the letters home. We're conferencing with families. We're making sure things are in their home language. But we don't see any changes in the family bringing kids to school. So the only consequence seems to be that the student is just falling behind, but then we move them on anyway to the next level. And so then they're 2 or more years behind by the time they get to 3rd grade. And so our policy is telling everything that the school district is going to do to support families, but it's lacking the consequences that some of the other districts around may have with a juvenile court MOU with the district. We've looked at a couple of other districts. Yakima School District and East Valley both have an MOU in place that actually follows the RCW. So,
am I doing that one?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So we do have some suggestions because we know when you hear our concerns, you also like to hear our suggestions. So our suggestions are to follow the district policy in WACs that say that have language about 7 unexcused in a month or 15 in the year, file a petition in juvenile court. We'd like to see the district go back to requiring a note for medical appointments. This has gotten very lax, but our providers are very used to providing notes. We just don't ask for them. The reason this is important is we've had students that have had 12 dentist appointments in a year. And because we don't require the note, the office has to accept that as excused, even though we know they're not. Another suggestion we have is remand back to their own building or their own district for attendance issues. We'd like to see a development of a truancy board and then a district-wide focus on attendance.
So I was down in Grandview doing a training over the summer, and all plastered up all over their hallways was a symbol of a hand with 5 days or less, and that was their goal for the district, was 5 days or less of missing days of school. So we're also trying to do some things like at Cottonwood, we're trying to do some incentives for having perfect monthly attendance and things like that. So it would be nice to maybe have something district-wide where we could focus on attendance as key.
All right, thanks.
Thank
That was
you.
within our time, Mr. Thorner. Oh, kind of.
Can I ask you some questions while you're
Yeah.
up there? I was at the middle school for quite a while, and we always had, with those kids who were out of district, who came to the middle school, we always had the agreement that if you did not maintain good attendance, that we were going to send you back. That was just an automatic. We don't have that anymore.
I would say, with the limited knowledge I have just of my building, no, we are not remanding kids back to their home school or their home district consistently for attendance or behavior issues.
That was a real hammer. I mean, that's why I didn't mind taking kids from other schools, because that was, if they didn't behave, or if they didn't come, or if they didn't do their schoolwork, we could always send them back. And that was a real hammer for the school outside their supposed area. And if we're not following that, that's something we could start doing. I mean, that's a strong incentive to keep a kid in school, especially if they've made the effort to come to that school. They're probably not being bused, they're being driven. And I mean, it's an effort from the parents to get them there. And I would assume it would also be an effort from the parent to get them there on a regular basis if they knew they were going to have to go back somewhere if they didn't get to school on time. My second question is, and this is probably a Peter question, but you know, this is how old I am. Jeff Sullivan, remember him? I remember the meeting at the ESD where he told us we are not going to do anything about truancy. Now, has the district court or somebody now agreed to actually bring parents in whose kids are not in school? Have they agreed to do that? Or is that MOU you're talking about? Does that mean at East Valley and Yakima, they actually can send the kids into district court or the parents if the kids aren't in school?
Perhaps there would be a board member more inclined to speak about that than West Valley teachers.
I know that we have a board. It's made up. It's supposed to be a community board. We in East Valley. It's supposed to be a community board, but it's made up of mainly district staff at this point. And post-COVID, we have really focused on attendance. We are not perfect by any means. We're not even close to perfect. However, the procedures and the hoops that families are having to jump through are uncomfortable, and so it's more comfortable to get their kids to school than it is to have to fall in line with the Becca bill.
Are you actually at East Valley sending parents to the district court?
Yes.
And what happens?
I'm not on that committee, so I don't know specifics on that.
Because that's new, if the district court's spending time on truancy.
It does take a lot of time. I had a discussion with my principal about this last week, and it does take an incredible amount of time. Not so many resources, but it does take an incredible amount of time to be able to get our ducks in a row to send those kids to juvenile court, those families to juvenile court. But we do feel that it's well worth it, and we're making positive strides in our attendance.
And finally, I love your idea of the hand. Anything we could try to do that's in a positive nature is much better than something that's punitive. And I've seen that at other schools where they have that, and they're really emphasizing being at school because everybody feels the same way, that you've got to be there to learn. And I think if we could do it as a district-wide incentive, kind of like we do PBIS, might be something that could really help out, and it's in a positive way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So those are the folks that signed up. Like I said, 20 policies. You've heard 20 policies up for first reading tonight. Anybody else like to speak on the policies? Public comment? Okay, I'll close the public comment period. Okay, we have several action items this evening. Action item 12A1, which is the approval of a travel request, a high school cross-country meet. Dr. Finch?
Well, I do apologize that this is a meet that has taken place, but we do still want to get approval. And we'll continue to work to get these to the board in a timely manner.
Okay. Thank you. Take a motion to approve the travel request.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries on the travel request 4-0. Next item is resolution 2109-732. And actually, I think just as a matter of clarification,
We fixed it.
which fixed what?
Oh, well, this is the current technical education, this
Right.
resolution. We had copy and pasted from last year's, but we didn't fix on the board packet. But one of our board members had caught that. And so we do have the signature here for
Right.
Michael Thorner as president and Dave Jager as vice president.
Right. Actually, that wasn't what I noticed. It actually should be resolution 23-09 because we're in 2023. That is a
Very-
Scribner's error that can be corrected,
Yes.
which is not a problem.
Thank you.
So we heard a wonderful report. We need to approve the career and technical education work set forth in the 23-24 school year, as described in the strategic plan that we received earlier this evening. And I will make a motion to approve 2309-732. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion carries 4-0. Next up is approval of Teamsters collective bargaining agreement.
We have a 3-year agreement here. It was approved by the Teamsters with their vote on the day before school started. And so we're ready to bring it to the board for approval. And appreciate the work that Joe Conley has done to work closely with the leadership of the Teamsters and to have a 3-year agreement in place.
Great. Thank you. Anybody would like to make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Jager. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Next up, we have 12D, which is approval of junior high gym bleacher project. And Mr. Conley presented us with a memo about that. Just for the board members' information, I asked about a hopeful what happens if we what happens if we do something in a few years with a new junior high or a modernized junior high? Would those bleachers be able to be reused in an updated or new gym facility? And I was pleased to be informed that the answer is yes, that those bleachers can be reused. So I felt a little bit better about that based upon that particular information. He also explained to me that right now the bleachers, without the railings and they're the same as when I was going through, and
Correct.
probably original equipment of the junior high from 1979, but which were not safe then and really aren't safe now. So that's really the priority. But the fact that they can be reused, that was information that Mr. Conley shared with me yesterday. So,
Thank you for that.
yeah.
And with that, I'll move that we approve the junior high gym bleacher project.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. So on the policy additions, which we spent a little bit of time on, is there anything else that anybody would like to say before I make a motion with what I think we wanted to take out separately and together?
After we have public comment on discussion items, is there any further discussion we need on 3122?
Well, I don't think so. When we were receiving comment, I pulled up the policy. The policy, as I read it, really, as Dr. Finch represented to the board, only talks about the removal and the emergency removal and the expulsion. The appropriate comments made during the public comment period from our staff about a positive approach to attendance. It's interesting. What I heard was in short, follow the policy and maybe carry it out in some ways that would be more successful. And there's some training initiatives and there's some more execution-based ideas, which are not necessarily part of the policy right now. So the comments are great and timely relative to the policy, but don't really comment on whether or not the revision relative to emergency removal or emergency expulsion should or shouldn't be adopted. So maybe
this is my thought.
Yeah.
Is if we're going to maybe include some other language into this policy, should we adopt a first read or should we pass a first reading with just those minor changes right now, or we're going to go back in and maybe add some language into that? Do we need to do a deeper dive into what is in that policy to ensure that if we feel that it is an initiative that we need to have in our district, I'm thinking we should probably take a little more time and look into this.
So we can do one of two things. One is we can do the first reading and continue to do that deeper dive. We can continue to forge ahead with the policy. That doesn't preclude us in the future in items arising, asking that administration do that deeper dive and then say, here's our policy, here's what we'd like it to say, if anything different, or here's our policy and here are the initiatives that we want to, from an execution perspective, the policy is fine. We need to do a better job of executing, and this is our plan of executing. I think all of those approaches are fine. And you guys, I'm sure will correct me if I'm speaking incorrectly, but I believe that the school board has indicated that attendance is an issue and that we'd like to see our district do better. And specifically, what are other districts that might be more successful than us in tackling this problem? What are they doing? What are best practices? Again, those are execution things, probably not policy things.
Right.
That's just, I think Mr. Mokel is good. I support the deeper dive like he's talking about. And we can always revisit the policy going forward.
So would it be appropriate to, during 13 items arising tonight, to ask that we do a deeper dive on policy 3122?
Absolutely. Well, I think we've already,
Okay.
because I support that. And if two board members support that, then we can do that. So, but I believe that I think as a group, the board has indicated that we would like to see proactive. I don't think there's any disagreement about the sentiment that we heard tonight from our staff.
I think when you look at the numbers, how shocking it is that fifth grade had 14, 16, and 6 days that they had 100% attendance bell to bell. And as an instructor, I will have to agree with our staff that there's no way that you can fill those holes properly. At those ages, at that age especially, they are being molded, and the foundation of their education is being set. And so these numbers are quite shocking to see. If you didn't write them down, I did write them down. I'd like to, again, share them with you at the end of the meeting so that you can actually see the percentage of time that our teachers are dealing with a full classroom.
You know, the interesting part of this is, if I guess looking at the positive, what are they doing at fourth grade where you have 48 and 52 kids there?
That was third grade.
Or third grade. Third grade. There must be magic at that third grade level to see a 48 and 52 compared to 14, 16, and 6.
But that's out of 180 days or about 170 days. By that time.
But one of the things that I would look at is best practices. And I would look at third grade at Apple Valley and say, what are they doing compared to fourth, fifth, second, and first?
Right.
Because obviously what they're doing works better. And that, I mean, that's something that we do we'd always do, is look at the programs within our district that are working and try to steal those ideas for everybody else. So.
Yes, and as a board, we talked about this when we saw the data summit, the data that we had about attendance recently in the July or August when we had our study session. And since that time, we do have a principal intern, Kristen Williams. Been sharing a lot of resources with her and I shared a article with the school board as well. It's a national issue right now coming out of the pandemic, and just some of the norms that were established about if you're have a sniffle, stay home, and then also, like our speaker said tonight, just a culture that from some families that it's okay to miss school, it's okay to go on vacation, you can make up your work maybe, and when we're online for so long, maybe not valuing what Kathy and I had conversations as well. Not valuing the time in class where students have that you can't make that time because you're having student-to-student dialogue and you're having small group instruction from the teacher and just things that can't be made up. So definitely looking at best practices, not only in district, but across the nation. We'll be working with the admin team, and I'll bring that to the table tomorrow. We have a meeting with the admin team tomorrow. So definitely appreciate the teachers coming forward, and especially in their concerns. And it's definitely something we need to work on.
And there's a huge difference between making up work and missing out on the learning.
Right.
And that's where, when kids are not in school, they're missing out on the learning. They can make up the work easily, but they're missing out on learning. In our house, we say miss school, miss out. And that you miss out on the learning, you miss out on the social aspect, you miss out on the fun of school. You miss out on wonderful teachers and the experience with those teachers. It's our hope that parents value that time that their kids are in school, and we'll get them into school.
Two things stand out as I'm hearing this really good discussion, because I think we're all striving to do what's right. And a major initiative of the school district is positive behavioral intervention. To me, that phrase alone can apply to this concept. To our parents that are at the elementary level, they'll understand FOMO, fear of missing out. And so, in terms of how do we change the behavior that, if you, like Mr. Mokel said, if you don't come, you're missing out. But doing that in a positive way. And and it's, again, these are tough issues and yeah, I read that article and it's not just a West Valley problem, but that doesn't mean that we can't be the best in the nation either.
Right.
In this area, and we could be a leader. So I'm confident that we can, but so I think it's a really good discussion. And again, I appreciate our teachers stepping up and sharing their concerns with us tonight. Thank you. Okay. So I'd like to make a motion, and just bear with me. So I'm going to make a motion on 12E, 1 through 9, 11 through 16, and 18 through 20. So that's policy 1610, 2121, 2190, 2230, 3207, 3231, 3520, 4001, 5010, 6020, 6217, 6220, 6530, 6550, 6605, 3122, 3225, and 3241. We can take those as a group. I'll make a motion to approve those first readings with a few, with the understanding that that there will be some revisions to that to some of those for the second reading. So with that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Next, separately, I'll move.
What was the pass number?
4-0, thank you. Next, separately, we'll take up 12E10, which is policy 50/50 on contracts. I'll make a motion to approve 50/50. I'll call for a vote. Please, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Meyer, you voted.
aye.
So all four voted no.
Right.
Okay, all four voted against.
Yeah.
So 50/50 is declined, and Dr. Finch will bring that back around after a little bit more review.
Sure.
Item 17 or 12E17, policy 6700, nutrition, health, and physical education. I'll move to approve 6700 for first reading as presented. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, the motion is declined 3-1. 3 no, 1 yes. Okay, and again, Dr. Finch will do some more work on that. Okay. Items arising. I think we've been talking about attendance. I think I appreciate. I again appreciate the discussion. I appreciate that Dr. Finch is going to work on this, so that's great. Anything else under items arising?
I've got one. It had some parishioners that have cornered me recently on why, and they're in different school districts, Sealy, East Valley, where they received, because of the passages of how we allocate our nutrition, our food to the kids, who pays and who doesn't based on need, why they received a debit card in the mail for their kids. And these are folks with a couple of them 6 to 7 figures a year incomes. They were insulted by it. Why in the blazes, why are they spending my tax money, to send me a debit card to feed my kid when we can afford to do it? We don't need this. And to me, and this is just me, they're just telling you how to vote next to election time, and it's not conservative.
So the question is, well, that's not these are people that are not families of the West Valley School District.
Some of them are, but they didn't receive any cards.
Right. So I guess I'm just trying to understand what you're asking.
Why they wanted
administrative.
to know why their friends, the people they socialized
Oh.
with and run around with, received them in those districts
Hmm.
when the folks in West Valley, and we have a lot of folks that aren't up in that level of income for crying
Right.
out loud. They wanted to know why they weren't given one.
Okay.
Why give one?
So the kid can eat.
Well, in all but two of our schools, they eat for free
Right.
now. So why do you need a card? They just go through. They don't need a card.
But that doesn't address the schools that do need one.
Well, the schools that do need one, they have to pay for their meals.
So again, just
That's what
to
I'm
just to make
saying.
sure that I just am trying to understand. So what you're asking Dr. Finch to look into is some neighboring school districts sending out some form of a
Well, they got it from somewhere. I don't know. It was
Right.
in the mail. It showed
Okay.
up in their mailbox.
correct, but they believe that some school districts that are not West Valley, they're receiving some debit card for meals for purchase at school.
Right.
Okay, so
Yeah,
Dr.
yeah.
Finch
Let's-
can look into that.
I'll look into that. There may have been something about COVID also. I don't know. We'll look into it.
Okay,
I'm not aware of West Valley sending out debit cards, so we'll look into it.
okay.
Another item rising, we do have strategic planning. We had a nice presentation for the school board over the summer. If there was a board member that wanted, or two that wanted to be a representative to that, just let me know. And I'll send you there's some Zoom meetings that we have. And also there's a community, come one, come all will be the evening of October 18th on Wednesday night. And so you're invited to that as well. But if you want to be part of the Zoom meetings, please let me know. Thank you.
Is the October 18th kind of like the send off at the beginning of the?
Right, that's the community listening and learning, I think they call it. So that's a evening event that anyone who would like to come and give input, they're welcome to do that. We'll hold it here at the high school.
Because I was in the impression that we're trying to involve a lot more people than we have in the past.
Right.
And Zoom meetings does not involve a lot of people. But is this the start of the effort to get more people involved?
Right. The October 18th will be in person. There will also be an opportunity for community members to join a Zoom webinar as well. But the October 18th will be in person here, and that's, like you said, the large community participation. In addition, there's they call it a core planning team, and that group is going to meet 4 times over the school year. 3 of those meetings by Zoom, and the last meeting in March will be in person. If there was a board member that wanted to be part of that core planning team, please let me know, and you can be part of the Zoom
I think
meetings.
their first meeting's tomorrow.
Yes.
The core planning group is that first one is tomorrow.
Do we have a board member on that core planning team now?
No, there's not.
Well,
You have a board member's wife that's on the core planning team. But
David, would you like to be part of that?
well, what time tomorrow?
I think it's at 4. I think it's at 4.
4 to 6, but there's other meetings. I mean, there'll be follow-up too.
Okay.
Okay, I'll send you the
Yeah.
information.
Send me the information.
Sure.
All right. Thank you. Dr. Finch, superintendent's report.
In the superintendent's report, I just highlighted the nice kickoff to the school year. We had a nice community event. Again, that was part of our planning to bring the community together and have events that were for all ages. We had a large number of community organizations that were here and sharing resources for families. And I really appreciate the work of Minerva Pardo, our family engagement coordinator. She helped to really organize all the different community organizations that were here, as well as the staff from the family engagement department. So appreciate all their work to make that just a great start to the school year. And then in addition, had information about an upcoming event that was a suggestion from a community member to have opportunity to learn about all the technology tools that we have available for monitoring student progress and also getting into Google Classroom so you can see what your students are working on. And so we're going to have that coming up next Tuesday night at the middle school. There'll be a technology open house. It'll be drop in. So you can come in at any time, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And we'll have different stations in the library at the middle school. And anyone's welcome to come drop in, learn about the technology tools that are used in West Valley. So appreciate that suggestion from a community member. And appreciate, again, Minerva Pardo's helping to be the point person to organize all that.
Great. Board reports, board development.
I have one thing. I was invited by Magdalene Benedicto to be a judge at an upcoming contest that the food services is having in October. It sounds like when I spoke with her this summer, she was throwing this idea out at me, and it sounds super cool. It's like an Iron Chef type deal where recipes are going to be submitted and selected, and then those people have the opportunity to cook those and present in front of community and whatnot. So that's coming up in October. I'm not sure the exact date on that, but I was honored to be asked to be a judge, and so
you get to
that'll
eat.
be a fun deal. I do like eating, so I'm looking forward to that. That'll be a neat hopefully an annual occurrence.
Excellent. Anything else? Okay, it is 8:59. Thanks everybody for coming this evening, and I'll adjourn the meeting.